for communication purpose. We have a few attendees join us. Our fourth speaker of today, she's coming soon. We are just texting. She's facing some tech difficulties, which is normal in a virtual conference. We are all adapting to that world. And it's my big pleasure to open the Western block of the 2023 PGS Summit. During the morning, we have outstanding conversations around gender equality, digital transition, climate change, transforming education. We have professors, people from business, a lot of students showcasing their great work and meaningful impact they are having on the ground. And there's a lot more ahead of us in the Western bloc that is starting now in our opening plenary. It's my big pleasure to welcome two of our speakers today. Dr. Tima Bansal, professor from Ivey Business School in Canada, founder of the Network for Business Sustainability, and the Prime Board Chair. And also with Tima, we have John Goodwin. John Goodwin is the former CFO of Legal, the former CEO of Legal Foundation, a Prime Board member, and currently special advisor at the Prime Secretariat. So we have two champions of Prime in the room, two people who has been dedicating a lot of time, energy, and expertise to grow Prime. So it's my big pleasure to welcome you. We will start it by Tima talking about the SDGs, the responsible management education, and the role of students behind it. Then John will talk more about the Prime mission, and how we are committed to students as a key player for achieving our mission. I will talk about the Prime Global Students Initiative, which is our infrastructure to advance student agency globally. And finally, Manu, our PGS regional lead in Africa, who is coming soon, we will illustrate everything we said with her own story and the story of many colleagues in Africa who are taking action and drive change today. So Tima, with no further ado, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you. It is genuinely an honor to be able to offer some opening remarks as the incoming board chair for Prime. I wanted to start by just telling you something that you all know, and I'm sure you've heard maybe a bit too often, but you really are the future. And I think that the problems and opportunities that we have right now are future facing. And so your insight and energy is more important than you probably even fully appreciate. And I think responsible management education is definitely a lever for positive change. But I want to start in a different spot. I want to start by reminding you of what happened at the some of the comments that were made at the General Assembly on September 22nd. Antonio Guterres had mentioned, and Armina Mohammed, his deputy, that we are at a critical juncture right now. We are halfway through the Sustainable Development Goals that were established 7 years ago. We want to achieve those goals in 7 years from now. Halfway through, 30% of our goals have either not been moved at all, or that we have even regressed. Goals are really important, like food security, poverty, employment, climate change, and conflict. And one could see that the future is really bleak. And if you anchor on this future, I know how depressing it can be, because you're saying to yourselves, I'm sure, it wasn't the future that you wanted. You wanted something that was much more prosperous. I want to paint another picture. And I'm going to start with this story of what I do in a classroom. And I ask students to draw this picture of the future based on what they see right now. And they feel this incredible loss of energy, this bleakness, this fear of what's to come. And it takes them an hour and a half to do this. And there's acrimony. And then I ask the students to anchor on what they believe is a desirable future. And they have to draw a picture about it, and then they put the pictures up on the wall. And it's remarkable how similar the pictures are. Some of the images that will be similar across pictures will be a sun, there will be trees, there will be a child maybe playing, there'll be clasped hands. And the similarity says a lot that we all know what that desirable future is, and we have very little difficulty reaching some sort of consensus on it. And I can feel the energy in the room change. The energy becomes positive, it becomes hopeful. Lots of research evidence to show that when people think about the future, they actually become more agentic. That means that they're more likely to create the change that they want. And that they become more creative and innovative because then they think of ideas. So I ask of you, let's not think about where you think the world is going. Let's create the future we want, and that is up to you. I want to leave you with two messages. The first message is activate that future, action that future. 30% of all graduates in higher education are business graduates. Now, if you can imagine that each of you becomes a voice in this future, and you activate others in the business schools to do the same, we can have a cascading effect of what can be done. And the second thing I want to leave you with, though, and this is related, is that it's not just about being the Greta Thunbergs in the world, which we all hope that everybody would be, but the reality is we're not. Each of us are just regular people, but you have probably underestimated the importance of what regular people can do. Small things like asking professors for more content related to responsible management education, asking your friends to show up at certain events, asking questions of employers who you're interviewing with to say, what are you doing about the environment? What are you doing on these social issues? Just asking questions allows people to reflect on what they've done or what they're doing. And that is a huge step in activating that future. In 2002, I started teaching sustainability in the MBA programs before probably many of you were even born. But at that point, people used to question climate change. I had the president of the MBA Association ask me why they were spending a day volunteering in the community and doing that in a very public environment. I had students ask me where they were studying poverty in a business school. The situation has changed. The situation is now very optimistic for students. And I think students are saying, give me more. And there's a hunger that there's never been. But professors won't change. Professors won't change without you asking them to. So I ask of you that you activate the change for that desirable future, but you can do that in your own way. And there's no one right way of doing it. I want to say that organizations are taking more leadership than they ever have before. On the one side, we see the movement, the anti-ESG movement. On the other side, though, companies are stepping up and saying if they don't do it, governments won't. And so if you ask your employers these questions, they'll do it. I want to leave you with just one more thought. You're all individuals, but you're all part of a global heartbeat. That global heartbeat is the United Nations, and it's prime. And if we start beating together, we will be heard. Thank you for all the work that you do. Over to you, Paulo.
Thank you so much, Tima, for sharing usual inspiring words, but also action-oriented for all in the room to take steps forward and be the change we want to see in the world. I think you spoke a lot about the movement of transforming education with the different players contributing as pieces of a single puzzle. And one big chunk of that puzzle is pride. And now I would leave to John Goodwin to talk a little bit more about the Prime and our commitment to student agents. John, let me share my screen so um, you can go over the slides with me. One quick second. John, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks so much, Paulo. Let me also iterate, as Tima has, the absolute honor and privilege it is to have an opportunity to engage with you, the Prime Global student community. I'm going to put a little bit of Prime specificity to Tima's comments around you as the actors of change. But let me underscore my final message to you at the start, and that is you are not alone in this. Whilst it can be highly frustrating that the speed of change is not occurring at a pace that we believe it's needed in order to create the world that I think we all desire, at the same time, I do want to underscore that we are very much in this together. So, Paulo, if you go to the next slide. In terms of the Prime mission specifically, I'm sure many of you are aware of this, but I just wanted to break it down for you. This is our mission, is really focused on transforming management education in order to develop the leaders of tomorrow that are going to really advance the sustainable development goals. So there's a cascade embedded within that mission that we have been reflecting on recently as a Prime Secretariat and a board to really think through how is it that we are activating that and what can we do to get more urgency and impact through that. So next slide, Paulo. That cascade we've represented in this pyramid. So at the root of what we're doing is the transformation of management education. Because through that transformation, what we're looking to do is influence the graduates out of the business schools, namely you, influence you and equip you to be more effective as responsible decision makers in the future. And through that, we believe that graduates will ultimately be significant contributors to the advancement of sustainable development. So that sort of three-tier thought process is embedded within our mission. And it is why, for me, Prime Global students are such a critical component of the overall Prime proposition. So on the next slide, Paulo, what I've now tried to do is to break that down, how Prime Global students effectively influence that mission delivery. First off, through this type of engagement, we are looking for Prime Global students to help shape what we're doing in Prime as a secretariat, giving you voice and agency around how it is that we're expending our resources most effectively in order to achieve the mission. So we really want to hear from you. We want to have that co-creative opportunity. Then secondly, as change agents within the business schools, as Tima has already mentioned, we're really looking on you to ask the questions, to start the dialogues within your business schools, within your environment, within your context, around what is it that needs to happen for the change to occur? What are the resistance points to making business schools adapt to the pressing needs that we see? And then undertaking and engaging back into that first point with us in the Secretariat to help in that discourse so that we can connect the dots and support you within that local community change. And then ultimately, as graduates, we'll looking to work with you to equip you to be those agents of change in whatever context you emerge out of your business school into, whether it be into a social impact venture, whether it be into government, or whether it be into the private sector. So there's three levels that we see you as global students being key agents of change for the prime mission. Paulo, next slide, please. Now, as Tima has already touched upon, we're at the mid stage of the SDGs, and 2 weeks ago we had the UN General Assembly, and that is a traditional annual point in which there is some reflection, and this one was even more significant because it represented that midpoint of the SDG process. And at the midpoint of the 169 measures that are in existence within the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, only 15% of those 169 sub-metrics are on track, which is, I think it would be challenging to depict that in any way other than pretty poor. And within the balance of the 85%, 48% are weak or insufficient, but perhaps even more challenging, 37% have regressed. Now, I've had the opportunity to participate in a number of General Assemblies over the years. And in my experience, this one was very different in its sentiment. Different in the context of both a realization that the results are not looking good, but as a consequence of that, there is more of a mindset of action. Up until now, generally, there's been a lot of discussion about intentionality. But what I think was positive from my context is that there was much more talk about what is actually being done, who is actually doing implementation, what could we tangibly learn from, and why is it that we're not making the progress that we need to make. That realization I found quite refreshing. And as a consequence, I am optimistic that the next 7 years will see much greater activity than what we've seen in the past 7 years. Paulo, next slide. One insight that I was given at a recent conference that I attended by a great academic leader who reflected on the fact that the issue when we are grappling with the Sustainable Development Goals is that those that are in positions of power are a product of the established order. They have come through the process that, to a large extent, has led us to where we are as humanity and as a planet. So we cannot be reliant upon only them to be the change agents that are going to create the future that Tima mentioned and as Tima articulated. And I'm sure sometimes you get a little bit tired of hearing this, but I say it in the context of an elevation of importance, that you are the future. So therefore it is key that you are given voice and agency to be able to shape the world that you want to live in going forward. So one of the other observations from the General Assembly was there is still a degree of private sector leaders saying, well, governments need to do more. And governments saying, well, private sector needs to do more. And there's a lot of finger pointing. However, what I would say is that that is now complemented with the realization of, yes, we want, for the private sector, we want governments to do more. And in the meantime, we have to get on with doing this. And similarly in the government dialogues. So it is a positive change. There's less of a whataboutism, but more about, what is it that I can be doing? And that's something that I'd love us as the Prime Global students to also think about and reflect on. Next slide, Paulo. We are at the very early stages of Prime Global Students. Prime has been in existence as an initiative for getting close to 16 years. And during that time, we have been really focused on building up the core reputation and understanding of what Prime can do within the academic community. But it's perhaps a bit overdue that we start to put more flesh and frameworks around how it is that we actively engage the student community and how we give them agency and influence in the work that we're doing, and get specific around the support that we can put in place and how we can collaborate around that impact and influence that we are jointly seeking. So we have been blessed to have Paulo in the Secretariat to help us think through the engagement. And I do want to commend all of you who have lent into Prime Global Students and really started to galvanize and get momentum there. So I would encourage you to keep doing that and keep leaning in and helping us understand how can we support you and how can we work together in furthering that joint mission. Paulo, next slide. So underscoring again, thanks very much for your partnership with us. Thanks for investing your precious time and energy in helping us achieve the mission of the Principles for Responsible Management Education. And with that, let me hand it back to you, Paulo.
Thank you so much, John. Thanks for sharing all this information with us and calling the students to do more, to engage more, and to contribute it as an active player for Prime in advancing our mission, and by the end of the day, also changing the world through responsible management education. So, and thanks for you for mentioning the evolution of Prime and creating an infrastructure to bring students closer and to advance the three pillars you mentioned. Because now I will talk about the Prime Global Students Initiative. So what is the infrastructure we did have to empower the students in our global community? So the very first reflection is that the learning journey has changed, right? We see a new profile of students who are demanding and pursuing change. We see that education moved from a top-down transfer of knowledge between professors and students to a more exchange of knowledge and experience between educators and learners. And we see that this movement has gone beyond the classroom. So students are taking action through student organizations to solve problems, to deal with the waste management on their campus, to alleviating poverty on the surrounding communities, to partner with companies to provide a consulting service for advancing sustainability practice, to promoting protests and activist initiatives for a better future. So these students are coming together. So the question was how Prime could provide them, their student organizations, an infrastructure that enabled them to connect to each other, to connect to further players in their ecosystem, and by doing so, to empower them, to leverage their impacts. And we organize our efforts in three pillars. We organized the first one on awareness, which is generating greater awareness on responsible management and sustainability among students, but also awareness about the student organization work in their ecosystem. Today, we're going to do a lot of this with people on the stage presenting their work, people in the audience learning from others. We also have a pillar on advocacy. How can we champion the role of students as catalysts for change? So how can we ensure they are occupying the different advocacy arena and shaping the debates, as John has called you, to shape Prime? And collective action, how can we explore students as a driven force between business and academia? This network buying for students has two major components in their infrastructure. The regional leaders, who are our faces and mouths in the regions, responsible for connecting the student organizations on the ground to our global movement. We have been doing so all over the world with more than 300 student organizations. We have this beautiful team, amazing team of students all over the regions. And today here we have Manu from Africa. And we also have a portfolio of 5 projects: the social media newsletter and PGS Talks, who are dedicated to the channels, communications channels, and PGS Talks is organizing this summit. We have the PGS Career, who is launching a pilot for mentorship program this semester, and the Ambassador Program, which is a partnership between Prime Working Groups, chapters, and PGS in a 10-week, delivering a 10-week training that now will be hosted in the Middle East. So these are our tools to empower the students' organizations in their ecosystems. And these are all led by students, 40 students from 30 Prime signature members in 19 countries, divided up on 5 projects, and also led by students. So each project has 2 co-coordinators. You might be asking how I can engage as a student, or how can I engage my students as a professor? We have 2 ways forward. Users on one side, those are individuals and organizations that explore our portfolio and the service of the regional leaders for their own student agency. And we have the builders, the regional leaders and task force members, who are putting their hands on the job to develop and implement our initiative as a learning opportunity to apply their knowledge in a global organization. And I spoil it for you, with us today, by late October, we'll be opening for applications for the next semester. Now I would love to hand over to Manu, so Manu can briefly bring us illustrated with her own story and the stories of her colleagues in Africa and South Africa, what we have been talking through so far. Manu, please, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you, Paulo. Can you hear me? Perfect.
Yes.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, PGS community from wherever you might be joining us from across the world. My name is Munouwarrah Abdurahman, and I'm meeting you from Cape Town, South Africa. I'm the current regional leader for Prime Global Students in Africa, and it is an absolute honor to share with you a personal journey that just really illustrates the impact of organizations like Prime Global Students and the incredible power of transformational education in the realm of sustainable development, as well as just how that education supports the growth for student agency. 3 years ago, when I first embarked on my academic journey, I had a passion for making a difference. I didn't know how I wanted to make the difference. I didn't know what difference I wanted to make. I was really unsure of it, but I just knew that I wanted to make some sort of difference. I didn't know where to start, like I said, so I explored different avenues, and this is where I stumbled upon my university called TSIBA. TSIBA is a non-profit university that offers, that kind of bridges a gap between affordability and quality education. Much like Prime Global Students, TSIBA is an organization dedicated to shaping responsible future leaders for a sustainable future. Now, leadership was at the focal point of my curriculum at TSIBA, and because because of that, it was quite easy for me to kind of find mentors and people to help me understand my passion and realize my purpose, which I found out was actually sustainable development. I partook in like a lot of workshops and seminars around sustainable development because at that time I didn't know what it was. I didn't know about the climate crisis. I didn't know about the UN sustainability goals. I knew nothing. And I just needed to educate myself because I knew that this was something I wanted to do. It was here where I kind of learned the skills and got the courage to start my own organization, and that is called TSIBA Earth. It is a student-led environmental awareness organization campaigning towards a better tomorrow. It's basically a group of like-minded students who knew absolutely nothing coming together in a collaborative effort to just educate ourselves and give ourselves the skills to be those change agents. So fast tracking to today and my involvement in Prime, I learned not just about sustainable development, but also the magic of collaboration, leadership, and the strength of a global network. I'm the president of my student representative body at my university and co-founder of TSIBA Earth. And this is kind of where I really saw that magic of collaboration and leadership that I've kind of learned from Prime take place. I had the privilege of working alongside many incredible like-minded individuals who shared kind of the same vision for creating a tangible change. And together we use the tool of education, collaboration, engagement, leadership to go from fighting for a seat at the table to creating our very own table, to creating rooms, to creating spaces where we would just come together as a community to tackle real community challenges. And through those efforts, we brought about tangible change. Being a part of spaces and organizations like Prime Global Students, you would actually learn that sustainable development is not a theoretical concept. Rather, it is a lived experience. It is about understanding the kind of the nitty gritties of global challenges, taking responsibility and deriving this positive change in our communities and beyond. As I speak here with you today, I urge you to just embrace the power of transformational education, just transformational education, student agency, and the mission of Prime Global Students. I want us to recognize that we as students, not just students, professors, anybody at any age, that we have the capacity to be agents of change, that we have the capacity to inspire others, that we have the capacity to lead, and not just lead, but lead by example. Together, we can address the most pressing issues of our time, and we can create a more sustainable and equitable future for generations to come. In the words of Nelson Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon in which we can use to change the world. I hope that we all educate ourselves as much as we can so that we can tackle these changes, so that we can be the change agents that we want to see in the world. In closing, let us continue to learn, collaborate, and act with purpose. It is only through collective efforts that we can truly shape a brighter and more sustainable future. And I believe that Prime Global Students, it's getting us there. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Manu, for sharing your personal story, inspiring story, and impactful story. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you in our team during this next year. So thank you so much, John, Tima, who were here, Manu. We continue our journey here in the summit. And thank all of you who are attending this session. Now I kindly invite you to go back to the lobby. So leave this room, go back to the lobby, and click on the next session on the PGS talks with Kenisha Aurora, when she will do a balance on the youth declaration on transforming education launched last year. See you all in the next side.